All right, welcome everyone to the first of our two-part series on Arlington's economy. Today's program is Arlington's Economy in 2020, Change and Resilience. Next month's program will be part two of this, which is Arlington's Economy in 2021, What Does the Future Hold? Make sure to mark your calendars for this next program on Wednesday, January 13th at 7 p.m. In just a moment, give us just a moment here. I'm gonna ask Scott or Brian here to push out a link to you in the chat with details and registration info for next month. So keep an eye on that chat box. It'll be out there in a minute. If you are watching us on Facebook and you think this is something your friends would like to hear, consider sharing the Facebook Live with your friends. We're excited to close out 2020 with a reflection on this year, and this is going to be a great panel to paint a picture of the challenges, changes, and resilience of our community. To stay in touch with us, please like and follow our Facebook page. We publish our events through email announcements as well as Facebook events so that you'll hear about our upcoming programs and can share them with friends who may be interested as well. So my name is Hannah Dannenfelser. I'm the chair of the Arlington Committee of 100, and I'm going to be your moderator for this evening. Our panelists tonight represent government services, the nonprofit community, and small businesses. And they're going to give you some on-the-ground insight onto what things look like in Arlington this year for communities that have been most impacted. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from our panelists tonight. I've actually had the honor of working with all three of them in various community work, so I know each will have important information to share. We have Anita Friedman, who is the director of Arlington's Department of Human Services, Andrew Schneider, who's the executive director of Arlington Thrive, and Lisa Ostroff, who is the owner of Trade Routes, a shop down in Westover neighborhood, a fair trade gift shop in Westover neighborhood. So each of our panelists are going to present, and then it's going to be followed by a group Q&A. You can submit questions using the Q&A at the bottom of the screen, and we're going to get to as many questions as possible. Would you mind switching the slide? And it'll show you where you can do the Q&A. Just take a look at that screenshot there to show you where the Q&A is. I do encourage you to keep your questions very concise and to ask them in the form of a question. So I think all of us are aware that there are really profound needs in Arlington. As the Arlington Committee of 100, we take a fully neutral stance on issues and function purely as an educational platform. The Arlington Committee of 100 brings together leaders and stakeholders from across the community who are dedicated to making Arlington a great place to live, work, play, and do business. And you come to the Arlington Committee of 100 to help arm you with information to do that. We don't make asks here, but in light of the urgency of the challenges our community is facing, I'm going to pivot for a moment and make a request to all of you in the audience. As our panelists are speaking, please think about what action or takeaway you'll have as we hit 8 p.m. and you go back to your respective lives. We theme this program around change and resilience, and you're about to hear the impact of changes in 2020. Resilience requires all of us to be part of a collective solution and to act. So consider staying in the loop on what action Arlington government has taken and let your thoughts be known. Donate to a nonprofit that urgently needs your support. Shop at a local business that you want to stay in our community. Order takeout from our restaurants to help them survive the winter. These are the ways that we have been and will continue to be a resilient community. We are all burnt out from a tough year. We've also all had some hope this month that there's a light at the end of the tunnel with this vaccine. So I hope you'll keep up your stamina for supporting our community right now to get us through this final stretch. I do want to say a thank you to our board. They have really, our volunteer board at the Arlington Committee of 100, they've navigated us through many, many years, easier years than this and challenging years like this one. And this year we've really thrived. So thank you to our board for keeping us going and being so successful. And then another thank you before we start this is to our program year sponsor, the Arlington Community Federal Credit Union. Every nonprofit organization has needed to adapt and pivot this year, and the Arlington Committee of 100 is no different. This is our first year having a sponsor to help keep us strong through the pandemic. Some of you know me and know that my day job is at the Arlington Community Federal Credit Union, and I get to work with a number of great community organizations on behalf of ACFCU. The credit union has strong partnerships with many nonprofit organizations in Arlington, and the sponsorship was a way to bring together two organizations with a mission focused on community betterment. All right, well, that is really all for me. I really appreciate you guys being here with us tonight. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our speakers who you're really here to see. We're going to get started with Anita Friedman. Again, she is the director of Arlington's Department of Human Services. Thanks for being here, Anita.
Thank you very much, Hannah. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Anita Friedman. I am the director of Arlington County's Department of Human Services. For those of you who don't know, Arlington County government has 13 departments. Our department is an integrated Department of Health and Human Services, which was created in the 1960s to respond to all of the types of health, mental health, and social service and housing needs that typically impact low income families, as well as people in the community who are vulnerable, living with disabilities, seniors, or people with serious mental illness or substance use disorder. So, as you probably know, this has been a year like none other, and it has hit our county hard. And the population that our county, that our department serves, has been particularly impacted. I wanted to give you a little bit of background about who I'm talking about and some of the data that is more, I think, eye-opening than anything else, and hopefully will stimulate some conversation. So I'm going to share a screen with a PowerPoint. I look forward to all of your questions and hope that it's stimulating information for you. Hold on. Here we go. Okay. So the Department of Human Services, as I said, was created in the 60s. It's one of the largest departments in the Arlington County government. We have about 700 staff, and we serve a large number of people in Arlington. We serve people who are at risk. That means people living in poverty and in other vulnerable situations. Now, I'm not sure if everyone is aware, but when you think about Arlington, you think of a well-off community. And how much does the area median income look like for Arlington households? Well, a four-person household on the median earns $121,000 a year. That's a healthy salary. But we have many families who are living in poverty in Arlington. How much does a family living in poverty make in Arlington? The same four-person household would make $36,000 or less per year for four people. Most of us could not imagine how it would be to survive on that amount of money. This is considered the 30% of AMI. Why is that terminology important? When you hear 30% of AMI, it's typically the threshold when you're talking about affordable housing. No one should pay more than 30% of AMI on their rent. Okay, where are these folks located? Where do they live? Well, free and reduced meals means that you're getting free or reduced lunch for your kids in school. And most of those children are in Carlin Springs Elementary, Randolph Elementary School, Barcroft, Barrett, and Drew Elementaries. And those largely are in the zip code 22204. So luckily we're located in 22204, and that's our primary population that we serve. Columbia Heights, Buckingham, and Barcroft are neighborhoods with very high percentage of people living below the federal poverty level. 28,000 people are living below 30% AMI. And in our department, we see 18,869 people who receive Medicaid and an average of 56,294 last year for customer service walk-ins. Our phone number is the phone number where most people call when they are in need of food, housing, or any kind of crisis assistance. I'm painting this picture because I want you to know this population has been hardest hit by coronavirus. We also know that in Arlington, we have a majority of white or Caucasians, and to a lesser degree, people of color, Black, Indigenous, and Latino populations. But in Arlington, when you look at median household income by race, really, and you can see this in the purple line here, the purple line is fairly stable and has done well over time. People who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color have really fared far less well in Arlington. Similarly with coronavirus, the orange line on this graph represents the Hispanic or Latino population. And you can see that, with the peaks over time, the bottom axis is since March through November, where how the cases have risen and fallen of coronavirus. But overall, 35.8% of the cases of coronavirus in Arlington have impacted the Hispanic population, which primarily resides in that same 22204 zip code. I wanted to give you some information also about unemployment. Prior to COVID, our unemployment was somewhere around 3%. It had even gotten as low as, I think, 1.9% at some point. That has climbed, and so initial claims since March in Arlington have been almost 20,000 people who have filed for unemployment. How has our department responded, and how has the county responded? Well, we never closed. Libraries might be closed, some other places, parks closed for a while, certain parks. We did not close. We're not able to close because our services are 24/7, including emergency service response to mental illness, our adult and child protective services. We've led the efforts for community testing and vaccines under our public health department, and you may all be familiar with Dr. Ruben Varghese, who's our public health director, who's provided leadership to the overall response, including and especially the outbreaks in the long-term care facilities. With emergency assistance, with the partnership, and you'll hear from Andrew Schneider in a few minutes from Thrive, we've provided, this is old already, $5.2 million in eviction prevention funding, not just with federal CARES Act money, but also local and state monies to help people who cannot pay the rent and who are at verge of being evicted. Food assistance has gone up. Our SNAP or food stamp program applications went up 400%. And we've AFAC, the Arlington Food Assistance Center, has been serving 3,000 or so households a week. We provide some funding to them. And there's been a very strong response from many community groups and schools as well for food assistance. We've converted many of our programs to telehealth models, something that we had never tried before, and have managed to find great productivity and results with serving children, adults, and seniors, all of them, through as much telehealth as possible. Of course, not preventing people from coming in, but also, but being able to connect with them virtually. And we have fielded the emergency support functions of mass care, public health, and volunteer donations through our department. We don't operate alone. And part of the beauty of the resilience of this community, which is the focus of this panel tonight, is that we are solidly in line and in step with so many unbelievable nonprofit partners, from the affordable housing providers like APA, AHC, and Wesley, to the hospital and free clinic, to Doorways, ASPAN, AFAC, and Thrive. So I think part of the resilience of Arlington is that we already had a closely knit network of providers and partners, and we have built on that to be able to fill the gaps when necessary through local efforts as well as through the state and federal fundings that have been available. You know our number, probably 703-228-1300. That's the gateway to many of the programs that are serving these most vulnerable clients. We welcome any queries you may have or any efforts that you may want to get involved with. And this is our website. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you so much, Anita. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Andrew Schneider. Andrew is the Executive Director of Arlington Thrive, which is a nonprofit here in Arlington, and he's going to tell you about the work that they do.
Oh.
You ready,
There
Andrew?
we go. I'm ready. I am ready. You know, welcome everybody. I had so many jokes prepared. I just wanted to say it was so good to see so many of you this evening. And now I can just say I'm just so honored to have this huge record-breaking turnout to see us this evening. I'm sure if I could see who are the participants, I'd be able to see so many friends and colleagues who care so deeply about our community. So thank you very much. A particular thank you to Anita, who not only as director of DHS, but as a colleague and a friend, leads really the front line of the pandemic response for Arlington. And not only her efforts, but her senior leadership and down to everybody on her team has worked tirelessly, I mean, literally tirelessly and nonstop around the clock since the pandemic. And I'll talk a little bit more about that partnership as we go through. I just wanted to tell a little bit about Arlington Thrive. Arlington Thrive is a 45-year-old organization that was founded in 1975. And our job has always been to help people in their moment of need with emergency assistance. We recently revamped our mission statement to make sure that we thought about not just that emergency moment of assistance, but really thinking about how we can help people find a pathway to stability and security and thriving in their lives. Arlington Thrive. Arlington Thrive has had an interesting and storied past. We were founded in 1975 under a partnership with the faith community and the Department of Human Services. We were originally called Amen. Some of you may remember that. I can see you nodding your heads. Yes, thank you. In 2013, I was the first full-time paid staff member in 2016. And over the last 2 years, we were really thinking about what kind of role we wanted to play in the community. We, in fact, finished our 18-month strategic planning process on February 27th of 2020, literally 2 weeks before the beginning of what we call the pandemic era, March 13th. Our budget, as Anita has alluded to, has dramatically increased over the last 7 months, and we have played, I believe, a vital role in the eviction prevention and the emergency economic response to the pandemic. Just to kind of give you some color about how this looks over the past year, a year ago, we had 3 employees and our budget was about $1 million. And we were basically sharing the weight between our funding between Arlington County and our private fundraising efforts. And our average assistance was about $250, of which we were helping families maybe once or twice a year, or definitely once, or we weren't helping them at all, once or twice a year. And then you compare that to this year, where we now have millions of dollars in funding, 7 case managers, and our average assistance, mostly because of the emphasis on eviction prevention, is over $1,000. And we're helping people for multiple months at a time, because our primary focus during the pandemic is keeping people in their homes. just to kind of put this in context, you can see that in fiscal year 19, and like most nonprofits like the county government, our fiscal year goes from July 1st to June 30th. So in FY 19, which ended on June 30th, 2019, we'd helped a total of 2,300 people, thinking about that population that Anita alluded to of the 28,000. Well, already this year, from July 1st to November or December 6th, or whenever I pulled this data, we've already helped almost 4,000 people. And our budget, as you can see, has increased over 800% since in just over a year. Similarly, and the way that Thrive works is that we work with our partners. We have, before the pandemic, we had a strong group of committed partners, other nonprofits, DHS, parts of the Department of Human Services, and other agencies in the county. But we've been able to expand that to over 30 organizations and social safety net organizations in Arlington, from APS to faith community to large nonprofits to small nonprofits. And it's really been one of the, and I'll talk about this in a minute, one of the real outcomes of the pandemic is growing our partnerships and our collaborators. You can just see here just visually that most of our funding, as Anita alluded to, came from the generous taxpayer support of Arlington County and through federal funding from the CARES Act. But as we know, and as Anita alluded to, Arlington has a lot to deal with. COVID-19 has laid bare a lot of extreme inequities in our community. And we know that this is not just in Arlington, but across the country. But even in Arlington, where we are the 8th richest county in the United States, we still have 30% of our kids on free and reduced lunch, not just at the high poverty or the highly concentrated poverty schools that Anita referenced to, but throughout our community, there are pockets of poverty and people who are struggling. And there's been a lot of efforts through the CARES Act, including the eviction moratoriums. But as many of you read last week in the Washington Post, people are still accruing debt that will be almost impossible for them to come out from under without additional assistance. That the moratoriums and the assistance from the CARES Act has helped, but it's not enough in and of itself, or it's not enough to get us through the entire storm. I just wanted to say a few minutes about the look ahead. Things are going to get worse before they get better. And I know that sounds somewhat dramatic, but we know by just seeing where we are with COVID counts and with winter and with unemployment going up last week after having dropped for several months in a row. And we know, because we've seen this throughout the entire pandemic, that low wage workers and hourly employees will continue to lag behind the rest of the economic recovery. And we know that federal assistance, even we see these fits and starts of additional CARES Act funding, there won't be a new CARES Act funding or new CARES Act funds at the earliest until February or March. And we know that it won't be as generous as the 2020 CARES Act funding just because of the situation in Washington. And we know that the county manager, the county board, and our leadership, who are very committed to these efforts, also face tough choices, whether it's budget shortfalls, and the unprecedented costs of what this pandemic has done to our community. And for nonprofits, we know that there are a lot of challenges. Many nonprofits, through our research and through our collaborative works, have seen an increase in fundraising, but not all, especially not nonprofits like Arlington Thrive, who are in the social safety net areas. You think about your arts organizations, you think about education organizations, people who maybe have redirected some of their charitable contributions towards the social safety net. What we've learned at Thrive is that we're going to have to be very aggressive and plan with multiple types of scenarios. What's going to happen if there is additional CARES funding? What if philanthropic donations decline again? Or what if they stay steady? And as you probably know, because I can see so many of your faces and I recognize you from so many of the events we've been to over the years, that fundraisers and galas, even events like this, as Hannah alluded to at the beginning, have fundamentally had to change about how nonprofits raise money. I don't know how that mets out for other nonprofits, but I know it's what myself and Thrive's wonderful board and staff thinks a lot about in terms of the coming months and years. I think these are pretty general lessons learned that I wanted to share. I think Anita and her team, and really the whole county managers and staff, led by example by adjusting quickly and safely. That they set up their emergency operations center, they rented out a hotel so homeless populations wouldn't affect other shelters. We increased our spending even before there was a CARES Act. The county came through with county funding to make sure that there wasn't an initial mass wave of evictions. Growing a team at Thrive and having people bring their resources as employees has been great, but the social safety net is tapped. Just like we talk a lot about frontline workers, we know that they are also at the point where it's very exhausting. Collaboration, which Anita alluded to, the Arlington Community Foundation has done an amazing job meeting and convening every 2 weeks all of the nonprofit leaders, which has been a really vital connection, especially because we can't meet in person. And additionally, we've been able to bring together through Arlington Thrive and the faith community, the Arlington Interfaith Network, which is meeting every 2 weeks as well, to hear from people like Anita and Charlie Meng from AFAC, and volunteer opportunities to connect the faith community, even when there can't be as many in-person networking and faith events. So I just want to skip to point 5, where we just want to make sure that we never waste a crisis, that the collaboration that we found, that the innovation that we found, that the abilities that we have found to operate in an incredibly situation don't get lost. And so when we come back, in whatever version that we come back, we are reinvigorated and refocused on the best ways to serve our community. And the fact that this year coincided with the murder of George Floyd and refocus on racial inequity and justice, even here in Arlington, where we sometimes think that we don't have as many problems in those areas, it's important that we don't take our eye off of that as well, as service providers and part of the safety net. And I just wanted to end with this quote and just really highlight the work that everybody in the social safety net that is working on in Arlington. That, you know, in the United States, people are expected to survive on their own, and we have that kind of determination and self-determination here in our country, and those who cannot are often left to sink. And I don't think that's what Arlington is about. And I'm very honored to be a part of this. I'm very honored here to speak on behalf of our entire wonderful Thrive staff and many of our Thrive board members. It looks like when I look out in the audience that we had 100% board participation. So thank you all for coming.
Great. Thank you so much, Andrew. All right, and now we're going to hear from Lisa Ostroff. She is the owner of Trade Routes. If you have not been to Trade Routes before, my family already knows that it is where I'm hoping a couple of my Christmas gifts come from. If any of you are listening, this is a reminder. So Trade Routes is a shop down in Westover that is really fantastic, and I will let Lisa tell you a little bit more about it. And Lisa, you're muted.
There we go. Good. So hello, my name is Lisa Ostroff. I do own this little store called Trade Routes in Westover area of Arlington. And just a brief, kind of history of who we are. We started as a fair trade store back in 2012. We went into the old cafe Arax space right next to a dry cleaner. And the purpose when I started the store was to have an effect both on the Arlington community, but also on developing countries. For those of you who don't know what fair trade is, it's trading with other countries and other people and their cultures and their handicrafts, and trying to maintain people's way of life in a fair and responsible way. And so that's what we brought to this space. And then 2 years later, the dry cleaner next door opened up. So I added what I was hoping to be the community space for Arlington. So we added a little cafe, and we offer beer and wine, and it's really become what I hoped it would become, which is just a really kind of safe space for the community to come to. And so that's who we are. The purpose of Trade Routes, of the cafe, is people and planet, and then profits, and that's where we are. So back in March, when COVID hit, I closed the store immediately because I didn't kind of know, anything, like a lot of small businesses, what's happening, how are we going to protect ourselves? How are we going to protect our customers? So I closed the doors before the county said anything about closing doors. And we pivoted, and we spent 3 months putting everything online. I had a couple of employees go on unemployment, and I worked for those 4 months creating a website. And it's been very, very helpful. People in the community have been very supportive. They bought gift cards for when we could open. And I think, like many small businesses, we did what we had to do bring in some revenues. And in July, we opened up for small hours. We do not open up the cafe. I probably won't open the cafe again for, I don't know when, until people have vaccines. It's just doesn't feel worth it to me. And I have to tell you, the community has been very pleased. We're in there with our jackets on, the doors and windows are open. We're sweating in the summer and we're freezing in the winter, but people come daily and thank us for having a safe space to go and a place to walk around and feel at peace. And so that it's worked for that. And the county, to their very dear credit, has allowed people, businesses like myself, where I used to have a little bit of, how do I say, a little bit of, I don't know how I want to say it, but the county has been difficult in some ways to work with, nice as can be, but a lot of changing rules, and it was hard to kind of keep up with what is signage, what is posters, what you can and you can't do, because it seemed to change a lot. But the summer they came in, they created this TOSA application that we could apply to, and it allowed us to serve beer and wine outside when we hadn't had that application and zoning for that. And it has been infinitely helpful. I think it's been really, really helpful for us. And it's been very, very helpful for other restaurants and cafes. And it's been really, really wonderful for the community, because they have needed a place to get out to, and it has given some time to do that. What else did I want to tell you? How is our relationship with our customers? The customers have been wonderful. Arlingtonians are wonderful, and they have supported the store. I think they're supporting a lot of small businesses like myself. I'm constantly reading really positive things over the Arlington neighbors and et cetera. And people are doing what they can to support small businesses. And most small businesses, I think, like myself, have really adapted the way they need to. In my case, it was the patio and the beer and wine outside. It was going into e-commerce when I really had only intentions of being brick and mortar. When I started the business, I was told you can either be brick and mortar or you can be e-commerce, but you can't be both. And I kind of understand that at this point. It's difficult, but it's manageable. And in the end, I'm hoping that we will do both, and we'll do both successfully, and we will be around. And so I think that I think the whole COVID has been a lesson to us all. And I think other businesses, I feel terrible for restaurants, because I at least have a gift store that can go online and the restaurants can't. But I do feel most of the small businesses are adapting, and the county's doing really what they can to help people. And I think that's all I have to say. I'm sorry I don't have a big old PowerPoint, but I am a little small business, and I worked till 10 minutes before I got on this call.
Thank you, Lisa. Really appreciate it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and ask our panelists to please turn their cameras back on, and I'm going to have a couple questions for y'all, and you can unmute yourself as we go through. And I actually do we have everybody here? Sorry, I think this is just my screen. Yes, I've got everyone. Sorry, my screen is set up funny. I can't see you all. All right. So I'm wondering if each of y'all can share with our audience. We have a lot of folks in the audience who are wondering, what can I do over the next few months? Hopefully we're going to be in a better place at some point in 2021, but we have a couple tough months ahead. So in each of your areas, I'm wondering if you could share the one thing that you think would be the one thing that would make the biggest impact that people can do in the next few months.
Who do you want to start?
Lisa, do you have one to get started?
I would obviously say, I think Andrew mentioned it too, is to really support small businesses when you can. A lot of them have websites, a lot of them have curbside pickup. And don't forget that you're supporting the business, you're supporting the employees who work at the business. You're supporting the community who wants to have small businesses. Arlington has always really the people of Arlington, I should say, have really, really always wanted small businesses, and they don't want Pottery Barns necessarily on every, in every neighborhood. And the only way these small businesses are going to thrive through this and succeed is people sticking with them.
Andrew, can I pass it to you next? Thank you, Lisa. And you're on mute still.
I know, yes. So the question is, what is something that people can do? Is that
What's the number one thing that someone could do in your area in the next few months that could help?
Well, I mean, I think the first primary thing, and I think we're very lucky to live in a community that cares so much about our fellow community members, is to wear a mask and to make sure that we get the COVID under control as quickly as possible, because it is a false dichotomy to think that we can do anything without the other. I think the reality is that as much as helping small businesses, I just think for me, what has been so impressive upon me is just the mental health impact on all of the people working across the front lines, from doctors, medical professionals, and social workers and case managers. And I think the reality is that I think sometimes people don't want to hear this answer, but the social safety net, it depends on the largesse and the generosity of our community. And that is going to be even more important in the future. And I think you've seen that generosity borne out, for the incredible fundraising years that many nonprofits in Arlington have. So I'd either suggest continuing to do that, or if there's a nonprofit that you've supported in the past and you hope for it to be there in the future, then maybe it's time to revisit that as well, because I think we also have to be thinking about how do we maintain the vitality of our community after this.
Thank you. Anita?
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't represent Dr. Ruben Varghese' message. He would be most disappointed with me, which is wear a mask, stay home if you're sick, maintain 6 feet of distance, avoid any large gatherings. To reiterate what Andrew said, we're not through the thick of it. We're going to have many more cases, and unfortunately that will mean more fatalities. So we really have to heed this basic advice from our public health officials. Also, when we start getting the vaccine, which is not that far off, we're going to have to really do as much as possible to encourage people to get vaccinated. It's going to be difficult because it's a 2-dose vaccine. And, as much confusion as there was even just about testing, imagine what there will be about the vaccine. So reaching out to neighbors and to people who may be skeptical, we will not be able to really get immunity or go back to normal until we have about 60% of our community vaccinated.
Thank you, Anita. So Timon asks, let's suppose things go back to normal tomorrow. What new things are you doing now that you would like to continue to do after COVID? I love this question. I think a lot of business where I work we've been asking this question of ourselves all week, every organization I'm a part of. So I think this is a great question.
I can jump in.
Yeah.
So, we're a large department, about 700 folks, and probably we were one of the holdouts to go to telework prior to the coronavirus. Oh, you cannot do mental health treatment over the computer, and you cannot do a housing inspection over the computer, is what everyone would always say. So we dragged our feet for years. And within 3 weeks of the emergency declaration, 90% of our staff were teleworking. Now, we still have quite a few services that are in person because we're mandated to actually see people's physical state close up and personal sometimes. But you can do telehealth. And in fact, people like it better in some cases. Other things that we've expanded that we never thought would expand because of being in a virtual environment, like WIC, the Women, Infant, Children's Feeding Program. Our numbers have gone up. not just because of the food insecurity, but because people don't have to trek into the office with their kids in tow. So there's a lot of benefits to the virtual environment that I think have enabled us to reach more people. And I think that whatever the future holds, I know we will be having some kind of hybrid model where we do a combination of technology for services and in person.
Andrew, do you have thoughts here? I'm sure you do. And we've still got you on mute, Andrew.
Thank you for giving me the shot collar, Hannah. I know that some people think that sometimes that's the only way I'll stay to my time limit, but I mean, I think for us it's similar in terms of the way that we work. Obviously, we've changed a lot of our model. We used to have checks picked up or dropped off, and now we mail them out. There are a lot of business efficiencies that have come out of this, and I think for me, from a Thrive perspective, it's really the collaboration. And I don't know if Ann Verteberg from the Community Foundation is out there tonight, but her leadership and Jen Owen's leadership of maintaining that convener role when there's kind of been this impetus to kind of go to your corner and huddle. It is very important to be brought together, just like this evening is important to be brought together. And I think one of the real benefits on a brass tacks, kind of an example of that, is APS, Arlington Public Schools, has become a closer partner to the social safety net. So we've been able to work more closely with school social workers and school guidance, well, mostly social workers, in terms of helping and addressing that need. And I think that's an important thing. I think the other thing, and Arlington, luckily, because we were already heading in this right direction, but how do we continue to look at the racial equity component of this, which I think for us, I think as memories fade, will always be intertwined with the pandemic because of what we kind of went through and the disparities that I talked a little bit about earlier, and just making sure, how do we not lose the focus on that? So I'm interested, and I'm really frankly excited to see, once we have some of these restrictions lifted, how we'll be able to do even more things together.
Lisa, do you have anything to add here?
How are things going to change in the future? Is that
what are you doing now that you'd like? You kind of spoke to this in your remarks,
yeah,
but
so.
you did speak to this, but is there anything you'd want to build on about what new things you're doing now you'd like to continue after COVID, or did you?
No, I think I am curious to see how people will react. There's a lot of talk when people come in and talk about when this is all over, and where some people feel like you were all saying, there's going to be so much more done online, but I think there's also going to be a rush for people to be together. I think there's been so much loneliness in this process that I think a lot of people are going to want to come in and be together and go to stores and eat. And
So I have a question from Adam. This looks like it's really directed to you, Lisa, but if Anita or Andrew, if you have any background in this, please feel free to jump in. Adam is asking, what kind of county taxes or fees on small local businesses could be waived to help them recover? Lisa, I know you mentioned a lot of interactions with the county. Do you have thoughts on whether, I'm going to expand on Adam's question. There's the county taxes and fees, but do you have any other comments just on, in general, what the county can do to help you?
I can't really speak to the taxes because I think the county, there's so many, I'm a pro-tax person. What can I say? The county needs the money, and small businesses are doing what they can. Now, the county's been giving grants, which I applied for and did receive, and that's wonderful. I think if they could just ease some of their restrictions and continue those, like what's gone on in the allowing people to serve on sidewalks and in the streets, and it's really made a European feel out of Arlington, and it's wonderful. And I hope that rather than say, okay, COVID's over now and we're going to pull back all our restrictions. I mean, Arlington's really, really strict, from their signs to their plumbing to their everything is very strict. And people in Falls Church, my friends that have businesses in Falls Church, they just don't run into what we do in Arlington. And we're losing a lot of businesses that go to Falls Church because of that. So I'm hoping that the county does take a look at what they've done and what they've allowed, and that it's been okay. It's been more than okay. And I hope that that's what I see come out of this.
Great, thank you. Alice is asking, I think this really goes towards Anita, but Andrew, you might have some feedback on this too. Can you discuss new employment support and training planned for low-wage earners? Is there some training? Do you know what's going on in kind of the employment space and preparing people for employment?
Well, Anita, there's the George Mason program, right, from the state.
You want to go ahead. If you want to jump in, and I can go.
Well, I think, the reality is that there are a lot of programs here in the Commonwealth. George Mason and the Commonwealth has a retraining program for folks who have lost their job due to COVID. I think the Arlington Employment Center, which sits in Anita's building, has gone online mostly, but a lot of those services are available. I think that, I'll punt to Anita very quickly, but I think our concern is with low income wages, hourly workers, that as those jobs come back, they're going to come back more slowly and there will be fewer of them. So it's that gap until the economy really comes back, which I think even after the vaccine is probably another 12 months after that, maybe longer, maybe less. We only have so many precedents to look at. This is not the 2008 recession. This is not after 9/11. So we don't really know exactly how long the economic recovery is going to take. But I do think there are programs out there. But you also have to remember that this, before the pandemic, as Anita alluded to, there was very low unemployment in Arlington, and we will probably get close to a relatively low number relatively quickly once the vaccine comes, relative to the rest of the country, but not as low as it was, is my guess.
Yeah, we have the Arlington Employment Center is Arlington's one-stop workforce development location located in the Department of Human Services. We work together with Alexandria's One Stop. We have a regional workforce council. It's true, we have converted most services to virtual services. We've even we continue to have virtual job fairs with hundreds of people actually getting on, and employers. And we also have still have training programs. We can send people with funding through our department or through the employment center to receive certifications, especially if they're retraining for some other kind of profession where there's been a layoff. Or online, we offer CDA, which is the Child Care Development Credential, and different computer IT certifications. So we're opening up the resource center in person starting, I think, next week, which is where you can actually come in physically on an appointment basis.
That's great. Thank you, guys. So we have time. I think we have one question that's a big question. So I'm going to make it our last one. And this is Andrew, this is right in your wheelhouse, but Anita, you'll have some things to say. I'll just ask you to be conscious of time because I know there is a lot to say about this. Alan asks, landlords can't afford to go without rental income for long. What is the safety net for those who may be evicted? And Alan, you are in the right webinar here tonight. You are talking to the right people.
I see a lot of questions. So Alan's question was related to, well, most of the county made a strategic decision pretty early on in the pandemic, was that most of the resources that they were going to put, in addition to things like protective gear and public safety, were into eviction prevention and food security. And so literally millions of dollars have been put into eviction prevention. All people have to do to get access to that care is what Anita said earlier, which is called 703-228-1300, and they will be connected either directly to somebody on Anita's team or then through to somebody on my team. And they will vet people for eligibility, vet people for, and let them know what they need to get access to that assistance. And there's different pockets and different pools of funding coming online all the time. The state of the Commonwealth of Virginia has come through with a program that is making it easier for landlords to help their tenants. And I think this is going to be a very fluid situation. I do believe that there will be additional federal legislation, which will ultimately come to the communities. I don't think it's going to be immediate. I know Anita will have other things to say, but I just want to give a shout out very quickly to John Weisstat's question. The faith community has done an amazing job. They have struggled to keep their doors open, their pews filled virtually and otherwise. They've had an incredible technological challenge just to kind of keep their virtual lights on, candles lit, if you will. And not only the Church at Work program, which raised hundreds of thousands of dollars to help people in their homes, but just supporting the overall safety net, continuing to do food drives for AFAC, to raise money for Thrive. And I've been fortunate to be a part of the leadership of the Arlington Interfaith Network. We've been meeting every 2 weeks with Anita's steadfast involvement, connecting those various tentacles of our community together. And we've been, it's been very just reassuring that the faith community, even in this day and age, is alive and well here in Arlington. So I'm sorry to piggyback on that, but I also am happy to say hi to John as well, because I can see him staring at me.
Thank you, Andrew. You hit two of the questions in one answer, so I really appreciate that. Thank you. Anita, did you want to build on that at all? I know you work with this as well.
I want to know how Andrew is seeing everybody.
It's a lie. It's all a lie.
I'm going to be seeing everyone too.
I have John Weisstat's image in my head, but I don't see him. Hi, John. Anyway, Amazon has not provided funding to the county government that I'm aware of, but they have provided to nonprofits in the tune of several $1 million, and to the Arlington Community Foundation, right? Andrew can correct me on those numbers. Right. Faith community has been amazing. Shout out to Queen of Peace and their food pantry, particularly, but a lot of assistance to people in need using whatever resources they have available. With regard to funding in the future, as we said, we're not out of the woods. It's going to be a tough winter, and it's going to be a tough FY 2022 fiscal year for the county manager. If you're following the budget discussions, which I think some of the public conversations started tonight, and there's always more going on. They're looking at somewhere between, I think, around a $40 million gap. And so that means departments are putting forward service reductions at the same time that there's commitment to eviction prevention. So, your county board is going to have some really difficult discussions, I think, and the county manager to figure out how everything balances out, being the caring community that we are, but also being faced by some real budget pressures.
All right. Well, thank you, all of y'all. I really appreciate it. As we're just really glad to have all three of y'all here tonight. You guys are doing a lot of work on the front lines. You're working with people day to day, and also strategically about how we can be a more resilient community. And we're just really grateful to have you. For those, I'm going to ask for our audience to stick around a couple more minutes. I do want to ask Anita, I know you said it a couple times, but I just want to really hammer it home. Will you share that phone number one more time if someone in the audience, or if someone needs to reach out to the Department of Human Services for support? What is that phone number? Anita?
It's a little frozen, but it's 703-228-1300.
Perfect. Thank you. Anita, I think you froze. Sorry about that. And we just pushed that out in the comments. And Andrew, again, is with Arlington Thrive. They are great if you're looking for a place
10 to 2.
Oh, there you are. Thank you, Anita.
Oh, did I fade out? I put the phone number in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you. Arlington Thrive is also a great organization to support that's doing some great work. And as I said, I'm going to be shopping with Trade Routes with Lisa, and I encourage all of y'all to go shopping. They're in that Westover shopping center on Washington Boulevard. So all three of these folks are doing incredible work in the community. So thank you all. And I also want to give a thank you to Scott and Brian, who are on our board. If you see me looking to the side, I've got my phone over here, that they are helping keep me on track so I can keep all of our program on track here. So thank you too for your support. I really appreciate it. So if anyone would like to go back and watch the recording, I actually always watch these a second time because I find that there's so much content in here that it really sinks in. I really digest it a lot more when I watch it a second time. So I love that. So if you would like to watch this recording, you can see it on our Facebook Live page. And please feel free to share that with friends who you think would enjoy this program and would like to learn a little bit more about this. So again, this is a 2-part series. Tonight was part 1, and part 2 is coming in January 13th at 7 p.m. Arlington's Economy in 2021. What does the future hold? We just pushed out the link to registration in your chat box there. So go ahead and register. So we see, I know, I love Andrew. Andrew's seeing all of y'all. I'm imagining seeing you guys, and I'll continue to imagine seeing y'all next month. So thank you again for being here with us tonight, and we'll see you in January. See you in the new year, actually. Yeah, see you in 2021. Bye, everyone.